Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the prominent American minister, author, and motivational speaker, once said, "Action is a great restorer and builder of confidence. Inaction is not only the result, but the cause of fear." I really love that quote, and I think you'll see how it ties into today's topic in just a moment. You see, for many years in my real estate career, I worked as an office manager or a team leader for some very well-known real estate brands. And in those roles, I hired hundreds of agents to join our firms. During the interview process, I frequently asked them why they got into real estate. I heard many of the same answers over and over again. I like helping people. I like architecture and design. I believe that I'm making a difference in my community. What I never heard, not even once, is I like prospecting for new business. And yet, unless we initiate contact with the people who could eventually become our clients, we never get the opportunity to experience what drew us into the profession in the first place. And that can lead to disappointment and disillusionment. Prospecting for new business is one of the most crucial activities in real estate sales. And for many agents, it's also one of the most difficult. Despite knowing that it's essential for building a steady pipeline of opportunities, a significant number of agents avoid it. This phenomenon is known as prospecting reluctance, and it's a persistent challenge that can severely limit your success as a real estate agent. Research shows that as many as 80% of sales professionals experience prospecting reluctance at some point in their careers. Many experience multiple bouts of it throughout their career. The end result is always the same: an insufficient number of clients to work with in order to hit your business and financial goals. This leads to a diminished income and, for far too many agents, the end of their short-lived real estate career. According to the National Association of Realtors, 87% of all new agents leave this industry within 5 years. And the primary reason is that they haven't been able to generate enough business to sustain themselves. With that difficult reality as a backdrop, I wanted to use the next few videos to take a deeper dive into prospecting reluctance, what it is, what it isn't, how you can properly diagnose it, and most importantly of all, what can be done about it. Let's begin with a quick working definition. You see, I see prospecting reluctance as a learned avoidance behavior that's triggered by an emotional reaction to the thought of initiating or following up on potential sources of business. In many ways, it involves being unable to promote ourselves in a business setting. Simply put, prospecting reluctance is the result of disruptive emotions, which interfere with a capable and motivated agent's ability to put their energy into generating business and redirects it instead into behaviors that are less stressful and less threatening, at least in the short term. The truth is that there's nothing more threatening to an agent's career in the long term, but in the short term, we end up feeling calmer, safer, and relieved. I want to be clear, prospecting reluctance is a learned behavior. It's not a personality type or a psychological disorder. It's an extremely common part of this business. And the very good news is that because it's a learned behavior, it can be unlearned as well. Through proper diagnostic assessment, which we'll talk about a little later, we can determine which of the 16 known forms of prospecting reluctance might be interfering with an agent's business. And once properly diagnosed, there are proven interventions that can turn things around for the better, and often very quickly. In my next video, I'll share some of the situations that may look like prospecting reluctance, but really aren't. I'll call these the behavioral decoys because they too lead to the same end result: not enough clients to work with and not enough income. These have more to do with low levels of energy or motivation or unclear and unfocused goals. Many of these issues can be eliminated through proper business planning and training. And while we're on the subject of training, I want to share a few observations about real estate pre-licensing training. I should begin by saying that I've been a licensed real estate instructor for many years. This is the credential required in my state to teach the state-mandated pre-licensing course required to obtain a real estate license. In my state of New Jersey, a new sales licensee must successfully complete a 75-hour course and pass the state exam. And as much as I would love to say that students completing these 75 hours are well prepared for a career in real estate, I just can't. Yes, students learn important things about becoming a fiduciary, contract law, and state and local regulations. They learn about various types of deeds, financing options, and the types of tenancies. But nowhere in the 75-hour training do we teach agents how to generate business, how to provide a valuable service to their clients, navigate the ever-changing documentation requirements and the technologies in this industry, and build a profitable business and a rewarding career. All of that training is left to the individual brokerages. And many of them do a very good job of it. The challenge is that adult learners, they're kind of funny creatures. They want to look good and be right. And they'll often do whatever it takes to avoid putting themselves in a position to look foolish in their mind. And that's a problem when on day one as a new licensee, you're racing against some invisible clock to put a deal together, needing to convince someone that you know what you're doing so that they hire you and you can actually start earning a living when in fact you just don't. Unlike so many other professionals who work as independent contractors, think doctors, lawyers, all sorts of trade professionals like plumbers, auto mechanics, etc., they master their craft first and then bring their skills to the open market. With no apprenticeship or standardized training, real estate agents in America get licensed first and then develop their skills on the job. This often leads to a phenomenon known as imposter syndrome, the feeling that they're pretending to be someone who they're not. Now, this is a topic that I'll focus on in another video, but the end result is that newer agents, as well as experienced agents who find themselves in unfamiliar situations, often fall victim to the fight, flight, or freeze response. They want to start prospecting for business, but they don't know how to do it. And furthermore, they're not totally sure that they would know what to do with the business if it came their way anyway. This can often lead to a real hesitation to get started, which looks a lot like prospecting reluctance, when in fact, it's simply a reasonable response to a lack of preparation. Aligning yourself with a great training company, either through your brokerage itself or through one of the many online sources for agent training, is a critical first step in closing the training gap. And this should be done before we start to worry about whether or not you have prospecting reluctance. In the late 1980s, the Behavioral Science Research Press, a company based in Dallas, Texas, developed the SPQ Gold. It stands for Sales Preference Questionnaire and is the world's only assessment tool that measures prospecting reluctance, or sales call reluctance to use their term. I chose not to use the word sales call reluctance here, as this might imply that the reluctance is simply to pick up the telephone and make calls. And while telephobia is one of the 16 known forms of reluctance, there are many more. Each is triggered by disruptive emotions, which redirect the emotional and physical energy of a capable sales professional who wants to prospect and knows how important prospecting is in achieving their goals, yet just can't bring themselves to do it. Some forms of reluctance show up as behaviors that are more generalized and may impact other areas of an agent's daily life. Ironically, these behaviors can seem perfectly logical and adaptive under certain circumstances. The over-preparer, for example, is one of these more generalized types. While it makes total sense to want to be prepared before we interact with clients or take on any new endeavor, the over-preparer simply can't move forward at all unless they're prepared to handle any contingency that might come up, no matter how unlikely. Other forms of reluctance can show up as specifically targeted to a certain area of an agent's prospecting or self-promotion. Someone with referral aversion may have absolutely no problem with initiating contact and generating new business. The emotional hesitation is triggered when they have the opportunity to ask existing clients for referrals or even testimonials. Friend Shield or Fam Shield describe forms of reluctance where an agent can prospect for new business in a wide range of situations, yet feel that they should avoid contacting friends or family to offer their services. Now, according to the National Association of Realtors, Over 40% of consumers find their agent through referrals from a family member or a friend. You can see easily how these forms of prospecting reluctance could really limit an agent's chances for success. The SPQ Gold Assessment is something that I can make available to you if you feel that you might be struggling with prospecting reluctance. It's completed online, takes a little over an hour to finish. And once completed, you receive a personalized report prepared by Behavioral Science Research Press. And if interested, I will schedule a 45-minute review session where I can help you interpret the results and chart a path forward. There is a modest financial investment for this kind of assessment. And if you want to learn more about it, I'll put a link into the video description below where you can learn more. Or if you'd prefer to take a much less extensive assessment, I've created a free self-assessment that you can also take online. I'll put the link to that in the video description as well. The important thing to remember is that episodes of prospecting reluctance are an expected and common part of most every real estate agent's career. And as I said before, these are not personality types or psychological disorders. These are simply learned behaviors that, with proper diagnosis and intervention, can be unlearned with relative ease. There's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of. They simply don't get talked about enough, leaving far too many agents to feel that there must be something wrong with them. Hardly. As I said at the beginning of this video, however, there are several types of avoidance behaviors that look like prospecting reluctance, but aren't. In next week's video, I'll discuss these behavioral decoys in greater depth and offer some ideas on how to address them. Until then, here's wishing that you have a terrific and productive week. Embrace the journey.